Okay, hello. This is George Braswell, and I am going to walk you through my network diagram. I have created a network diagram for Stark Industries. I use Stark Industries because I'm a big Iron Man fan, and I always think it's fun to imagine um, doing work for Mr. Stark and creating these networks, and I always use Stark Industries for all kinds of stuff. So that's my chosen corporation here. Starting up at the top left uh, and working our way down, we have the internet coming in through the internet service provider, and that's running into our pfSense firewall and router, using that um, as my entry point there for our network. Um, that pfSense router is going to be installed on a physical machine, or it could be on a virtual machine. In this case, I am imagining it being installed on an actual physical machine. This firewall is, of course, our first line of defense. Continuing over to the right here, we have the Suricata IPS, and that intrusion prevention system is going to be placed in line in the network for active traffic evaluation. If necessary, it can take actions here at this point to deny any malicious traffic that it might see. It can send out an alarm to the network administrators. It can drop malicious packets. It'll block traffic from the source. It can also reset connections and things like that there at that point. And then continuing even further over here in my green box, this is the DMZ that I have established. This will be the public facing um, servers and applications here running through our DMZ switch off the network. This is where we're housing the email server, the DHCP server, the proxy server, and of course the web applications here in the DMZ. So after that, we're going to pass back over here into our main network area. And as the traffic flows towards the internal switch that I have right here at this kind of central point, off to the side, not running in the main line, we have the IDS, the intrusion detection system. And this, of course, is not active. It's going to be passive as opposed to the IPS. This IDS will be sniffing packets. It'll be looking for malicious traffic, identifying potentially harmful network traffic patterns, and then it will be passing that information and those logs on to our SIEM over here, and that will be monitored by the IT security team. As we note here. So throughout this diagram, I do have those different checkpoints for security, the different IDSs, the IPS checkpoints as well. All of those in this system that I've created are going to be returning their information, their logs, and monitoring traffic back to the SIEM from all those different devices so that the IT security team can take action against any potential malicious traffic, any malware that's spotted, or just if they need to monitor any unusual activity that might be occurring on the network. They also have to monitor potential false flags that can come up when using these security checkpoints like the IDS, um, just because um, it's potential that they could see network traffic that might be unusual, but in reality, it could just be some heavy actual business traffic that is okay. They still have to check it though, anytime an alarm is raised in these security checkpoints throughout the network. So continuing on, we have the internal switch here in our main network, and off of the internal switch, moving straight down, we have that running to another firewall before we get down into our primary server area. And through that firewall, running it through another IPS as an extra layer of security. And then off of that IPS, running it to two different switches. And these are going to be the first of our actual internal business switches. And these switches are connecting our multi-storied office. So it's potentially not a huge office if we take these 7 different machines to be just 7 and not groups of workstations. But here we have the first floor offices on the left, and on the right we have the second floor offices. And these are running through the switch to the primary server. And there's also an extra layer of IDS that's doing some traffic monitoring here as well for, once again, add a layer of security on this network. Now running back to the internal switch. This will pass on to our third floor offices, and this is where things are maybe a little bit more interesting as far as the network goes. On the third floor, we have here our different VLANs that have been created, those virtual local area networks for the different working groups here. So starting up here with VLAN 3, starting on the left, we have our engineering team. The engineering department is established. They've got their 25 workstations here in their group for VLAN 3, and that's being run off of a router here. All the traffic is coming off the internal switch. We're passing it through a firewall here before we hit those routers, and then the VLAN is there, just there. So over on the right for VLAN 1, we have grouped our cost department with our sales department, since both of those are going to be dealing with financials, financial information, business information. Those guys are going to be working together because they do, in the company that I work for right now, they do work very closely together. I think in the company that I work for, our sales department is actually either called business management or contracts. They all kind of intermingle a little bit under an overarching business management umbrella. But sales and cost, those two teams will be working together. So we've got those groups together on VLAN 1 because that makes sense for them to be working there together. And of course, running through their router for VLAN 1. And then down here in VLAN 2, we have the scheduling department and their 25 workstations and that crew working with the business management group as well in their department. Because in my current position, I am a scheduler. I'm a master planner and scheduler for Northrop Grumman. And we work very closely with the business management team members in helping them plan and execute different programs for our company and the different projects that we're working on and stuff. So to me, this is another logical grouping for both of these teams to be working together under this VLAN number 2. And all of these VLANs are networked together so that they can communicate with each other, but they are also segmented on the network into their own groups. So that communication, sharing of information, sharing of data can all be done very quickly, back and forth between those teams without any lag issues or any kind of network deficiencies, working right there in those groups. Finally, on the third floor, we have our research and development team, and that R&D team is separated from the network at large. As you can see here, it is air-gapped. It's not connected to any of these routers, to the firewall, to the main network at all, just because we want that to maintain its security. Research and development, of course, doing very important work for Stark Industries, coming up with all kinds of new products, maybe a few new armors for Iron Man there in that R&D department. But we have it separated physically on the third floor, so it's more difficult to get to. You have to get through the first 2 floors of offices, through the front door as well, as far as physical security goes. And then for network security, of course, it's air-gapped. So What that means is that in order to interact with this network, you actually have to physically be in the research and development department at one of these different workstations. We've got a Unix station, we've got an Ubuntu Linux station, we have our Windows server, and then we're also running Windows 7 and Windows 10 machines as well for those different applications that they might require there in the research and development department. So like I said, if you need to interact with these different machines, you have to physically be in the room with them. If anything is introduced or is to be taken out of research and development, it has to be done so through some sort of an external drive system. So portable hard drive, a flash drive, CD-ROM or a DVD, something of that nature. And then, of course, that traffic, if it's flowing out from our third floor offices, goes back through our internal switch and then back out through the firewall, the IPS, through to the back to the internet at large, and that would complete our cycle there. Um, as far as security issues, lots of different things that we could face as far as our network goes. Always looking for the different malicious content that could be coming through the internet. That's why we're using the DMZ for all of our public facing stuff, and then making sure that we have those different checkpoints and layers of security as you get into the actual network to prevent any kind of outsider access. And then, of course, you do have to worry about the insider threat, and that is a matter of training the actual personnel, the people that work with the potential insider threats, to make sure that you can see those red flags and keep an eye on coworkers that may be a potential threat to you from the inside. Um, this network does not take into consideration the cloud, which is something that many businesses are taking advantage of now. Lots of things are moving to the cloud. Lots of businesses are moving different pieces of their operations to the cloud for easy scalability, for flexibility, working arrangements, things like that. Stark Industries definitely should think about doing that as it is the wave of the future. I think for Stark Industries to start, it might be wise to go with a hybrid model of moving the network to the cloud, move some things off-site here from us into a cloud situation. It will improve some of our security, could introduce some different issues, some different authentication issues, some different availability issues. If the cloud goes down, of course, and you've got really important data stored in that cloud, if you don't have backups, that cloud goes down, then you are, of course, stuck until the cloud comes back up, and hopefully you haven't lost all your data. So, of course, there are different considerations that have to be made when considering moving to the cloud, things like that. As far as this chart goes, though, I believe we've covered everything. Thank you so much for your time, and have a great day.